I'm just kidding. I was just playing. I mean, it's going to start in 60 seconds, so figure it out. Hey everyone, I'm just about to be on a podcast, so I thought I'd take you with me behind the scenes so you can see what it's like to be me. Well, not really what it's like to be me, what it's like to be me in an interview.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Advanced Freelancing Podcast. I'm really excited about this one today because I am interviewing someone who is basically a case study of how to do all the right things when you are up-leveling your business. You know, there are strategies out there that will work. There are people, there are courses, there are books, there are podcasts that can help you achieve what you want to achieve. And a lot of us get stuck in the how rather than figuring out, you know, what do I make this look like for me? How do I take what I've learned and implement this in a way that speaks to my business? And so that's what we're going to talk all about today, scaling your business successfully by implementing advice and sort of tweaking it to what is going to work for your business. So I'm really excited about this one. Welcome to the show. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself for the audience?
Hi, Laura and Laura's audience. I'm Bailey. Well, my clients call me that, but I'm actually Balising. Short story about me. I've spent a good chunk of my young adult life in complete disarray, to be quite honest. I had dropped out of medical school. Then I started an e-commerce business and a digital magazine, and that was what it was. It sounds like a disaster because it was. Then I finally admitted to myself that I wanted to attend law school and specifically understand corporate law and financial accounting. And then, because, I just love sticking to things, I decided to simultaneously qualify as a forensic investigator on top of being a corporate law student. And I did all of that while working for Fortune 500 companies as an independent contractor, a copywriter, and a digital content creator, living the so-called laptop lifestyle. But, you know, funny enough, even with this newfound freedom, I did find myself still lacking some direction and kind of hating a certain part of my life and how I always felt busy for the sake of being busy while constantly daydreaming and wondering if I'd made the right choices and whether my clients thought I was actually a fraud. So I dealt with quite a bit of imposter syndrome. So then I gave myself an ultimatum that my freelancing income had to pay off more than just school fees and my life's overheads. So my freelancing income had to really give me the freedom to choose whether I wanted to work full-time as a corporate lawyer or mentor people who were just like me. So with this vision in mind, I decided that I wanted to start to build a brand that I wouldn't be able to stop talking about. And funny thing is, the minute I made this decision, Advanced Freelance Roadmap landed in my life. Seriously.
I think that's so funny. Like, well, first of all, I want to commend you on talking honestly about trying to figure out what the right career path is for you. Because I think sometimes we try to fit people into this box of, okay, go to high school, go to college, maybe go to graduate school, get some work experience. Like you're supposed to have sorted out your entire life by then. Like you're supposed to just magically know. And then there are careers like law or medicine, right? You named two of the big ones where you have to put so much work. I mean, I'm married to a physician, so like I have seen the whole thing from year one of medical school all the way through. And there's so much you have to put into that even if you get on the other side of it, by the time you realize this might not be for me, there's almost this loss of, but I put years in. I spent money. I worked really hard for this. I passed.
That investment bias. You're like, I can't give up now. No, there's no way.
And I love that you were willing to say, okay, I don't have to commit all the way to one thing or the other. Let me try some different things. And you landed on freelancing. How did you get sort of those first couple of clients? I know you mentioned you were doing this while you were balancing some other projects and things work-wise. So how did you find those first couple of clients when you very first started?
So I didn't play. The minute I heard about, back then there was a job board called Odesk. I was in it to win it. And I went hard on Odesk. And because of the fact that I'd been running my own e-commerce business and I'd been doing a digital magazine, there was so much content writing projects that I just landed. My very first project had to do with search engine optimization. And blogging and I was in it. Then my next one, it was like a naturopathic pharmacy, so e-commerce. And I was like, hey, look what I can do. By then I'd shuttered my, don't tell anyone. By then I'd shuttered my e-commerce business, but I had that as a case study and they were like, yes, you. So that's literally how I landed my first 2 clients. It was using my failures basically to use them as a freelancing case study of success.
Oh, I love this. And for all the listeners, if there's one phrase that Bailey just said that really speaks to who she is, it's that she is in it to win it and she doesn't play, because you're going to hear how she just takes things and implements it and doesn't spend 6 months thinking about, well, am I good enough? Can I raise my prices? All of those sorts of things. So let's dive into that. So the course that you mentioned is one of mine. I just opened it. I think it was Black Friday 2020, called the Advanced Freelance Roadmap, really designed to kind of pair with my book, Six Figure Freelancer, but put it into action. So when you signed up for the course, what were the biggest challenges you were facing in your business at that point in time?
Well, when I actually first joined the Advanced Freelance Roadmap, I was still, with all of this knowledge, I was still stuck in that feast-famine cycle on Upwork. Well, it was no longer Odesk, now it was Upwork. Right. And this means that if I didn't hunt and kill, I didn't eat. So for all the vegans out there, if I didn't forage and find something that wasn't poisonous, hunger would kill me, right? So that cycle, ironically, wasn't even born out of a lack of my own knowledge or skill or any of that. It was actually a natural response by the market to the fact that a long-term project of mine with a long-term client had actually ended badly. So here goes a failure. And so in the beginning, I signed this client. It was great at $15 an hour. Can you imagine? That is nothing to do very, very basic ghostwriting at a rate of like $150 a week. And this was totally fine. So as time went by, I was still working like a well-oiled machine with this client. A year later, I'd gotten them featured in Forbes and Fast Company, Inc. magazine. So when all of that happened, obviously the client was super excited and wanted me to take on even more ghostwriting and personal brand related projects. Now, I'd never done personal branding, so of course I was like, heck yes, I was in it. Reveled in the idea because I knew that it would allow me to add yet another non-copywriting notch to my belt, right? So we worked together for another year. As a matter of fact, at the end of the second year working together, I received my very first bonus from this client. So that was fabulous. Well, that bonus was both the best and possibly the most game-changing thing that could have ever happened to me. Because then I started thinking, if this client had always had X amount of disposable income for this particular project, then why were they only paying me $15 an hour? So I finally realized that I was actually the one that had been dictating the rates all along, and that the client was willing to accept whatever I put on the table as a value of my time and my skills. So with this in mind, the very next year, and our very final year working together, I said to this client, I said, my rates are going up, but because we've been working together for X amount of years, I'd really love to offer you a 15% discount. And I'd also like to offer you 20 business days of grace period for you to replace me if this 15% is just not acceptable for you. And guess what? The new rate was simply not acceptable for this client. I thought, okay, fair enough. We can end things amicably. 20 business days later, I ended the contract with the client, and then I went about my merry way working with another long-term copywriting and SEO client. Little did I know that my now ex-client that I had thought was amicable with me had basically made me radioactive on Upwork. The client said that my services were great, but that I tried to defraud them with billing, that and plenty of other inflammatory stuff about my work ethic, which they themselves had admitted was flawless. But to everyone who looked at my Upwork profile from that moment onwards, I was not to be trusted, right? So this completely shattered my Upwork job success score. I went from 100% satisfaction, which means that I can pretty much bid or pitch for any contract that I want, to less than 85%, which meant that I was going to really have to get creative with marketing. And ironically, while all this was happening, that's when I became a six-figure freelancer. And then, as the Google algorithm would have it, or I don't even know how it happened.
On the next part of my journey to six figures,
So while I do give away a lot of value, it's still my intellectual property and I intend on keeping it. And even after 5 days have passed, and even if the client chooses not to work with me, I still have that for future reference.